We're about to begin. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Lytec 2011 New Features webinar. At this time, I'll turn the conference over to Mr. Tony Peterson. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for taking the time to join us today. My name is Tony Peterson. I am the product manager over Lytec, and today I'm going to be introducing you to Lytec 2011 and the new features that are coming out with Lytec 2011. As well as talking a lot about Ansi 5010 and how Lytec 2011 will help prepare you for Ansi 5010 compliance. So let's move ahead to the agenda for the call. It's fairly straightforward. The first thing that we're going to talk about is an overview of Ansi 5010, what it is and why it's important to you. We'll then talk about how Lytec 2011 will adapt for the Ansi 5010 changes, as well as go over other enhancements and modifications that will be coming with Lytec 2011, and then we'll open it up for a question and answer session. To kick the session off, we'll just talk about what Ansi 5010 is. Ansi 5010 is a change in the electronic claim filing format that must be used by everybody who's submitting electronic claims. That there's a deadline for that we'll go over in just a minute. So everybody who's submitting any type of electronic claim, which would be the majority of all providers who utilize Lytec, will need to at least have an answer or a solution for their Ansi 5010 needs. So do you need a product that is 5010 compliant? Do you need Lytec 2011 that will allow you to be 5010 compliant and enabled? Right now, there are clearinghouses out there that are telling you that they're going to handle the 5010 format for you by allowing you to submit 4010 claims and then converting those claims over to a 5010 claim format. This is a very similar message to what they said to you during the NPI years and the NPI transition, where they said, we'll take care of you. You don't need to worry about it. Continue submitting claims the way you are, and we'll take care of your NPI. The reality that occurred during those transition years was that as the NPI deadline hit, there was a significant increase in the number of rejections and a significant decrease in the cash flow within many offices. NPI, in contrast to 5010, was only a 4-field change. There was an NPI number for the provider, the referring provider, the practice, and the facility. 5010 is a much bigger change that includes new values and new fields that didn't previously exist in Lytec. What that means is that there's not a field in there that will hold the data that is needed to generate a 5010 claim properly. The only way that a clearinghouse can take care of that for you is by hard-coding onto the claim the certain values that are needed for 5010. When they hard-code, they make assumptions. They say all of the claims are going to have this. And when they make those assumptions, that can result in claims that have invalid data, which increases the likelihood that your claims are going to be rejected. It does not mean that every claim will be rejected, and the reality is there will be a number of claims that clearinghouses can transition over for you. However, there is a significant increase in the likelihood that a particular claim or a subset of claims will be rejected. So, getting on a version of Lytec that allows you to enter in all the data that's necessary to generate a 5010 claim will help you in making sure that those clearinghouses have the ability to generate all of the data that's necessary in order to produce a valid 5010 claim. An Ansi 5010 compliance, there are specific key dates that you need to be aware of. The first date that we have listed is the release date of Lytec 2011. Lytec 2011 released in early March of this year. This is our Ansi 5010 compliant release. The testing period for Ansi 5010 began in January of this year. So a few months after testing began, Lytec released. We wanted to release so early in the testing cycle to allow you to ensure that the claims that you're sending out as of the requirement date, which is in January 2012, will be as clean as possible. You will be able to go through the testing period and ensure that as you submit a claim for different circumstances that you're submitting it in a valid format, that all the proper data is there, and that the carriers are going to accept the claim once it gets to them. That requirement date, like I said, is January of 2012. All claims that are submitted electronically will need to be in ANSI 5010 format. So let's go over real quick now over to the Lytec product and show you some of the changes that will be coming with Lytec 2011, specifically around the 5010 requirement. We're going to be using live software rather than PowerPoint in order to demonstrate this for you. And the first point that I'd like to make before we start getting into specific fields is that as we were doing the requirements and building Lytec for 5010, we wanted to make sure that all of the 4010 requirements were also met. So our starting point was looking at what we did within Lytec in order to generate a 4010 claim. As we were doing that, we noticed some deficiencies, and we in most circumstances, tried to overcome those deficiencies by adding the necessary fields that were there that were deficient in previous versions of Lytec. So we wanted the users to be able to generate a 4010 claim or a 5010 claim out of Lytec 2011, and you will have the ability to do that. So as an insurance carrier transitions over from 4010 to 5010, you can switch over that one carrier without having to submit all claims in 5010 format, because carriers are going to have different time frames in doing so. So let's start off with the practice information and the things that were changed here. On the practice information screen, there's a couple new fields that have been added. The first one that we'll focus on is the email address. The email address is a practice-level email address that would be sent to the insurance carrier for identifying the email address through which you'd like correspondence with the carrier to go. We believe that correspondence and communication in the healthcare world is going to move more and more towards the electronic type of communication away from phone calls, because it is significantly cheaper to send an email than to place a phone call. So with that in mind, we also believe that insurance carriers are not going to necessarily need to talk to the doctor in the office when communicating with the office, but rather there might be an office manager or similar billing manager type contacts that you'd like the practice to, or the insurance carrier to communicate with. In Lytec 2010 and earlier, there was no practice-level email address. There was only a provider-level email address, so you couldn't get that information over to the carriers. So we've added that here within the practice information screen right here. We've also added to practice information a telephone extension. Practice-level telephone numbers were being transmitted, and in a lot of circumstances, there are offices who have different extensions, and there's one in particular that they'd like to send over to the insurance carrier. We added that field so that you can do that. These fields were available in 4010, but not within Lytec in earlier versions of Lytec. Let's move over to the provider information screen. What we've done here, and what you'll notice, is we've taken a legacy of the old paper claims and the way that Lytec was built around paper claims and transitioned it to the electronic claim era. And the change that I'm talking about that you'll see on the provider screen is this new middle name field that replaces the middle initial field that was there previously. On the old 1500 forms, there was not enough room for a full first name, last name, middle name included. So it was last name, first name, middle initial, or something similar to that. With an Ansi claim, it does allow you to submit a full middle name for providers, referring providers, patients, etc. More and more insurance carriers are requiring the claims that are submitted match identically on the name with the names that are on file. If you only have a middle initial and the middle name is fully on file, there is a mismatch there that could lead to a potential rejection. So within the provider screen, the referring provider screen, and the patient guarantor screens, we have transitioned away from middle initial and expanded those out to be a full middle name. These will also convert over middle initials and populate with the middle initials that you have in previous versions of Lytec. However, you now have the ability to fully spell out what the patient's middle name is. Let's move over to the patient information screen, because there's some significant changes that have occurred here. The first one that I'll point out, just for reference to what we were just talking about, the patient's middle name has changed as well. The next one that you will see is a suffix. In previous versions of Lytec, there was not really a good way to handle patients who had a suffix in their name. The suffix being junior, senior, the third, anything like that. What offices very often had to do was come in here and manually type a delimiter followed by junior, senior, whatever the suffix was. That manually typed delimiter would throw off the electronic claims generation process for everything that happened after that. It was very difficult to get these claims out and paid for anybody who had a suffix on their last name. So we have gone through and given you a new field for patient suffix so that you can handle those properly and make sure that all of the claims for people who have a junior or a senior in their name will get paid the way that they should. The next change that you'll see on the patient information screen is that in Ansi 5010, there is a new valid value for patient's gender or sex. There is male, female, and those were there before. There is also a new value for unknown. In wanting Lytec to be able to fully comply with all of the different options that are there for submitting an electronic claim, we have added unknown to the drop-down list for the patient's sex. The next fields that you'll see right underneath the patient's sex field are fields that are directly related to meaningful use. With Lytec 2011, we have released Lytec MD 2011, which is a certified for meaningful use electronic health record. And in order to utilize this properly and meet meaningful use, there are specific demographic fields that must be captured by the office when the patient comes in for a visit. Those fields include a few fields that were not previously in Lytec. That includes the patient's race, ethnicity, and preferred language. Because the demographics are captured within the practice management system in the Lytec EHR scenario, we have added those new fields into Lytec 2011, and they will transition across to the electronic health record for Lytec MD. These fields are pre-populated with drop-downs where there are predefined values that can be entered into any of these fields. These values are values that are determined by the United States Census Bureau, and the list that is there has been completely defined by them, and we are meeting all of the requirements there for meaningful use around capture of that information. All of the changes that I've shown you here will affect the patient, the guarantor, the archive patient, and the default patient screens. So we're not going to show you all of those screens today, but all of those changes are in all of those different screens. There are some more changes within the patient information that we need to talk about. Let's move over to the secondary insurance tab, and we'll talk about some of the changes that you see here. The first field that we'd like to talk about is this new field down here, Medicare Secondary Reason, where the field is grayed out right now because Medicare is not selected as my secondary insurance carrier. The purpose of this field is to specify on the claim why Medicare is the secondary carrier. There is a list of valid values and entries that can be entered into this particular screen. What you'll see in parentheses is the value that's going to be submitted on the Ansi claim, and to the right of that you'll see the English equivalent. So the reason that we did that was because we wanted to, one, make the initial submission of claims easier. So those of you who are submitting claims and you wanted to say that this was workers' compensation and that's why Medicare is secondary, you would be able to select workers' compensation and not have to know that you need to type in a 15. Conversely, if the insurance carrier rejects the claim and says that you need to have a 15 in this field, you don't have to guess, okay, is workers' comp 15, or go look it up somewhere else. You can see it right here. So it will allow you to get your claims paid better on the first time by allowing you to see exactly what you're selecting, and on the back end it will allow you to better work through your rejections by including the Ansi equivalent that the insurance carrier will be asking for. Okay, the next field that we'll talk about here is the insurance group name. This is a field that was available in Ansi 4010, but not in earlier versions of Lytec. We've begun to see rejections coming from around the country where insurance carriers are saying that a group number is not enough. They expect a group name as well. So with Lytec 2011, we have added a group name field to all three of the insurance carrier tabs, so that those claims where those are required and the carriers that require them, that can be entered and populated onto the claim. You'll see another big change in the accept assignment field. This used to be just a checkbox where you either accept an assignment or don't. With Ansi 5010, there is a new value for accept assignment where you can say, yes, the patient accepts the assignment of benefits to the provider, no, they don't, or the patient refuses to assign the benefits to the provider. So with the third option, we had to change this field from a simple checkbox that was yes, no, to a drop-down that would allow you to specify that any of the three options that are there. Another change that you'll see is that the list of the relationship to insured has changed to meet 5010 standards. There are a number of different items that are available there and different ways to specify what the relationship is to insured, and we've changed those to meet the Ansi 5010 specifications. So before I move on to the next screen, which is here in the claim information, more information screen, I want to talk about this exact same screen in charges and payments. The reason I want to talk about the change in charges and payments is because we've made some significant changes to the workflow here and how you get to those screens. Previously, to get to the equivalent of the more information screen in charges and payments, you would come in here to your billing and bill options, or you'd hit the F8 button, and you would come to billing information and click a little button that was down here that would pop up yet another screen that would then have the more information 1, more information 2. In counting the clicks that it took to get to that information, it didn't seem like it was a very efficient way to allow you to get into those fields that are necessary in a lot of circumstances for getting a clean claim out. So we've removed that button and taken the more information 1 and more information 2 screens and added them as tabs to the general billing options screen. So you can very easily come in here and with one click get over to more information 2 and begin your data entry. So in talking about the specific fields that are changed in that particular screen, I'm going to come back to the patient. And the first field that we'll talk about is the special program code field. This field is used to specify any of 4 different special federal funding programs where the federal government has set aside money for specific purposes. And if you are attempting to submit a claim that is a part of any of these programs, this field is necessary. The 4 programs that it allows you to submit claims for are the Physically Handicapped Children's Program, the Special Federal Funding Program, the Disability Program, or the Second Opinion or Surgery Program. Another field that has been added to this that is part of the 5010 transition is the initial treatment date right here. There are certain circumstances where a carrier may require you to list the first date that the patient was treated for the condition that they're being treated for, and then right underneath that they're also asking for a first contact date. So the 5010 has allowed you to specify what the first date is the patient contacted you regarding the condition. Because those fields were added in 5010, we needed to make sure that Lytec had the ability to capture that information as well. Another big change that you'll see here is down here at the bottom, the addition of condition codes. The condition codes used to be a staple of the UV claims, or the institutional claims, and they have been, with 5010, added to professional claims as well. These are very similar to diagnosis codes in that they specify something about the nature of the condition that the patient's being treated for. And there is a predefined list of condition codes. Not every claim will need them, but now that they're part of a professional claim, it is possible for an insurance carrier to require them, and as such, Lytec needs to handle them appropriately. So we've given you those 12 fields there to allow you to enter the condition codes into Lytec 2011. The last piece, actually, no, that is the last piece on the More Information 1 screen. Let's move over to More Information 2. We have modified the nature of condition field for chiropractic claims so that it has a more extensive list that matches with all of the different possibilities for specifying the nature of condition that exist in 5010. This list was expanded, and so as such we needed to expand that in Lytec. That would be something that is very hard for a carrier or a clearinghouse to hard code for anybody. If a claim is requiring a specific nature of condition, that's going to be specific for each patient. It's not going to be something that can be hard-coded properly. Additionally, under the nature of condition, we've added 2 new fields that allow you to specify up to 80 characters that will more accurately describe the condition. These fields will go out on an electronic claim and are part of a new field that is available in Ansi 5010. So if an insurance carrier is asking for more information regarding that nature of condition, you can do that with the condition description 1 and 2 fields. And finally on this screen, the timely filing indicator. This used to be a free-form text field. We've changed it to a drop-down list that will have the Ansi values with their English equivalents next to it. So if, for example, you're filing the claim late because of a natural disaster, you can scroll down and select that from the drop-down list versus having to try to remember that you're typing a 15 there. Entering that information properly might not get the claim page the first time, but it will give you more of a chance if you need to appeal the claim because you let them know exactly why you're filing outside the normal timely filing period. Let's go over here to the diagnosis and reminder screen where you'll see that Lytec 2011 is expanding out from 8 diagnosis codes to 12 diagnosis codes. This means that for patients, billings, claims, etc., you will now be able to get up to 12 diagnosis codes onto a claim or onto a patient as their permanent diagnosis. 12 might seem a little excessive in the ICD-9 world. However, with ICD-10 around the corner and Ansi 5010 being a precursor to ICD-10, we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to handle the exact same number of diagnosis codes that Ansi 5010 will allow. And additionally, with ICD-10, the diagnosis codes are much more specific. There are more than 3 times as many codes in ICD-10 as there were in ICD-9, so it is conceivable that the number of codes per claim will increase significantly because of the level of specificity that will be required once that comes out. All right, moving on to the charges and payments screen. I'm going to bring up an existing billing here and highlight a line item and hit Detail, More Detail, or F4. A change that you'll see here is that we've expanded out the anesthesia fields that are available so that you can accurately submit an anesthesia claim using Lytec 2011. If it is an anesthesia-related procedure that you hit the More Detail for, you can select that it is a related procedure, specify what the number of minutes are, and then link it back to another procedure code that will specify which procedure code the anesthesia is related to. So those are necessary in order to get those anesthesia claims out. We've added those to the billing More Detail screen. You'll also see down here at the bottom we've added a couple fields that are necessary for proper NDC code processing. That would be the prescription date and batch number fields. Those fields were not available in earlier versions of Lytec, and those were required on claims where the NDC codes were being utilized. Okay. The next thing that we'll show you in charges and payments is the change from insurance narratives to EDI notes. The insurance narrative screen has been renamed to be the Edi Notes Screen. we wanted it to more accurately represent what exactly you were doing within that screen. If I bring it up, and let's add an EDI note to those two particular dates of service, you're now going to see a screen that is very familiar to you with a couple of exceptions. In previous versions of Lytec, you had a date, description, and then this box down here. We've added the new field type of note that will allow you to specify the type of attachment that you'd like to add to the particular claim. So if, for example, you want to do a PWK or an MEA, you have the ability to do so. So we're going to do an MEA. It then changes the fields that are listed down here below. In previous versions of Lytec, you would have to type @MEA, followed by an asterisk, and then the first value, asterisk, the second value, asterisk, etc., in order to get that out. We didn't believe that that was a very good workflow, so we've changed that up, and when you choose the type of note, MEA, all of the fields that are necessary to build that segment properly will now appear. So you can go say test results, you can choose what type of a test it was, and then put in the result and save that. So now we have that one there. You can also add another one. So if you have multiple EDI notes, you now have the ability to do that. So you have your MEA and an NTE with a note or special instruction. You can go through and create that exactly the way that you need to. Okay, let's move over to the scheduler for a minute and talk about some changes that happened with the eligibility requests in Ansi 5010. So if I come into my scheduler, within each appointment and each appointment reason, you're going to see a new field labeled service type code. This service type code will allow you to specify what type of eligibility request you would like to perform. In earlier versions of Lytec, you were only able to submit a service type code of 30. It was hard-coded into the eligibility request. What 30 means is you're asking the insurance carrier for general coverage information. It's a general eligibility request that will only return the most basic information. The carrier will generally respond and say, yes, the patient has coverage, here's their copay, here's their deductible, etc. With different service type codes, you now have the ability to go through and ask specifically regarding specific types of coverage, like chiropractic coverage or mental health coverage. Any of a number of different service type codes that are all listed in the Lytec 2011 help file. So if you go in here and say you want the service type code for this appointment to be CH, when the eligibility request is sent out, it'll be chiropractic, and if the insurance carrier will return that type of information, then they'll send back specific chiropractic coverage. Again, there's a long list of different service type codes that you could enter and submit using this field. I would refer you back to the help file, and you also want to verify with the insurance carriers that they can take the different service type code requests that you're trying to submit. Okay, back to the insurance carriers. There's a couple of changes here that we need to talk about. The first change that we'll see is that the accept assignment box, again here, has been changed from a checkbox to a drop-down. Now you don't see patient refuses because this is a default value for that insurance carrier, and you don't necessarily want to default that all patients refuse. That's something that's done on a patient-by-patient basis, but you can state the provider by default accepts assignment for this insurance carrier. The other change that you'll see down here is insurance type. This list has been significantly expanded from earlier versions of Lytec. This is because Ansi 5010 has increased the number of insurance types that can be submitted on a claim. Insurance carriers are going to change the types that they're going to require in order to increase the number of rejections that they're going to be able to put out there. They If they change that and your system is not able to adapt to it, then and you don't have the ability to enter the proper insurance type, then there is an increased likelihood that you will experience rejected claims as you try to get that worked out. Okay, so that is it for Ansi 5010. Let's move on and talk a little bit about BillFlash. BillFlash is a product that was rolled out with Lytec a few years ago, and what BillFlash does is it allows you to submit statements electronically through what is essentially an electronic statement clearinghouse that then takes those statements and parses them out and mails them for you to your patients. This service is one that costs about 68 cents per statement, and it significantly increases the rate of reimbursement that you have when patients actually respond and pay to their patient statements. BillFlash itself will print those out, like I said, for 68 cents. We have done calculations internally that say that sending a statement out costs your office anywhere from $1 to $5 per statement, depending on how you do it. $1 includes your stamp, your envelope, your paper, your ink, and the time that you're paying someone to actually sit there and stuff the envelopes. So for using BillFlash, you can immediately reduce your cost of sending statements. The other good thing that happens when you utilize BillFlash is that because the statement is on professional statement paper, it includes a payment coupon, and there's an addressed return envelope. Because of that, the rate of reimbursement goes up significantly. In fact, we have reports from multiple offices that have said that their patient payments have more than doubled the first month they began using BillFlash. So this service is one that really pays for itself, and is one, they're a partner of ours that has been one of the best partners that we've ever had a relationship with. As such, with Lytec 2011, we have integrated BillFlash at a level that was never possible before. The way that you can send statements in Lytec 2011 using BillFlash, if we come here to the Billing tab, Statement Processing, you're going to see the ability to transmit statements. This is very similar to those who are doing paper. Over here we have print statements. If we transmit statements, you would select your BillFlash format from your same list of custom report formats. You have all of the same options to include, exclude, set up your statements the way that you would like them. And it says that there's nothing to print because I had already uploaded them today, so in an earlier demo. So let me show you what would occur. Let's see if we can get in here to e-approve. So what you're then going to see is a screen that it'll bring you up here to the BillFlash screen, where you can go through and review the statements that had been immediately uploaded from Lytec to BillFlash. You can take a look at each statement, approve it, say, yes, this is one that I want to send out. You can add messages to it. When you then approve the file, you go back into Lytec and everything updates. The check marks in your charges and payments are updated, the billing dates are updated, and you were able to send out statements in at least a third of the time that it took you to process them manually. This process really pays for itself. It's one that we're very excited about, like I said. Another big benefit of using BillFlash comes with patient inquiries. For example, we have had a lot of people tell us that they have patients who call in and they have questions about the statement they've been sent. So you bring up the patient's account, you're trying to answer the question, you're not looking at the same thing that the patient is looking at. You don't have the statement in hand. Lytec doesn't have the ability to give you the statement as it looks in previous versions. If there have been any payments or any new charges, those don't appear on the statement that the patient's looking at, but what you're looking at is different. With Lytec 2011 and the integration with BillFlash, when a patient calls up and has an inquiry about a statement, we have added an eView button throughout Lytec, in the scheduler, in the ledger, in charges and payments, all throughout the program, where if patient Ian Anderson is calling and asking about a statement, I click the eView button and it will take me right into the statement that was sent to him by BillFlash, and you'll be able to look at it, answer any questions that they have, and move back and forth between Lytec and BillFlash, very easily getting to that information. This particular feature is one that people have asked me for years out of Lytec, because those patient inquiries and those patient phone calls are very difficult when you're not looking at the exact same thing. So we're very excited about the integration that has come with BillFlash in Lytec 2011. We would encourage you to talk to your resellers about signing up for that service as you get up to Lytec 2011, because it really will increase your cash flow and decrease your costs. There's not a better decision that you could make. So there's a couple final changes that I'm just going to talk about. We're not going to demo them as we don't have as much time as I would like today, but if you have any questions about it, you can feel free to ask. The first are related to revenue management. Those of you who are on earlier versions of Lytec and utilizing revenue management, in Lytec 2011 we've reduced the number of clicks that it takes to get revenue management to produce a claim. We have also increased the user-friendliness of the setup process, so it's a lot easier to set up revenue management. Your resellers will be able to help you with that. We've also made some changes to Lytec MD, where there's an increase in the data flow. So when there's more data that shows up in the electronic health record as it's entered into the practice management system. That would include an initial setup flow of your providers, your referring providers, your facilities, your procedures, your diagnosis codes, all of those things. When you purchase Lytec MD and install that and set up the data flow between the two products, those will all be configured for you as part of the Lytec 2011 configuration process. In earlier versions, it was a little more difficult to do that. So those are the changes that we have coming with Lytec 2011. We've been working very hard to bring out a product for you this year that is not only meeting all of the regulatory needs that you have, but trying to increase your workflow and productivity and profitability as an office. In the end, profitability is what we need in order to stay in business and in order to keep you in business. So we're excited about it. Hope you are as well. At this point, can we go ahead and open it up for questions?
Thank you. The question and answer